Welcome back to another episode of Route to Resilience, where we explore the stories, lessons, and transformations that remind us that resilience is something we build, especially through the moments we never expected to face. Today's episode is part of our Resilient Voices series, where we share conversations with people who have faced incredible challenges, overcome barriers, and turned their experiences into purpose. Today's guest truly embodies what it means to rebuild. I'm joined by Thea Brook, an award-winning entrepreneur, former CFO, and a business growth expert, helping founders create profitable, sustainable businesses without burning themselves. But before the achievements, businesses, and success, Thea experienced a life-changing moment that would challenge everything. After surviving a brain hemorrhage which affected her speech and having to rebuild her life, Thea's journey is a powerful reminder that even when life changes, we still have the ability to create a new chapter. Thea, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Route to Resilience.
Thank you so much.
So before we begin, I really would like for you to take us back to who Thea was before the brain hemorrhage, because I know that you're an incredible person and you've done so much.
Thea before the brain hemorrhage. In a lot of ways, still Thea, who's here now. I would say the big difference, I have always been so ambitious, whether that was in, achievements through education or being younger or then into my career and into businesses. And I've always been able to handle a lot. So I was that person who would be studying and at the same time have two jobs. I always had multiple things on the go, multiple projects. I would get everything out of every minute of every hour of the day, and I could cope with that. So I would do more and more and more like that, and I would just never have a second to myself and always be doing something and always be busy. That would probably sum up Thea before brain hemorrhage.
So can you tell me what you think has given you that drive in life? Because I think this is really key, because you were obviously a very powerful person before you had that life-changing moment. So I just want to know what makes you tick. What is it that makes you want to have this drive in life?
Partly, I think I'm fascinated by learning. I'm fascinated by exploring things. So there's always an element of wanting to learn something new, wanting to figure things out, wanting to break problems down or break things down and understand them and figure out how we can put them back together. I also have that very natural entrepreneurial brain that sees how things could be better. It sees gaps. I don't just see the challenge. And that really drives me to work on different problems and see improvements and solutions come through.
I just find it amazing what you're telling me now, because the way your brain worked and the way you were before this moment was probably really key to your recovery. So just talk us through, because the listeners are probably thinking, what are you talking about? Can you just tell us what happened in that moment when you had that brain hemorrhage? Do you remember anything from that moment?
I remember all of it, actually. So I was perfectly fine that day. I'd actually spent the morning doing a load of heavy lifting because I was helping my sister move storage units, and was just lugging boxes all morning. And then I was going into a meeting in the afternoon, and around about lunchtime when I was having something to eat, I started to develop, I wouldn't say a headache. So I've suffered with migraines since I was a kid, and there's something very different about the feeling of a migraine when it's coming. Like, you feel a bit sick and you don't necessarily get a headache straight away, but you just feel funny and you know it's that distinct migraine feeling. And I started to think that was what was happening. But the way my migraines start is that I lose vision on the right-hand side. So I know they always follow that pattern. And I was like, this is weird. It feels like a migraine, but that's not happening. So it was a bit of an odd feeling. And I was like, oh, I'll just take some paracetamol. Maybe it'll be fine. And then luckily the business meeting I was going into was with my youngest sister. And I said, she suffers from migraines as well. And I said, look, I think I've got a migraine coming on. I'm just going to need to put my coat over my head for a bit and get rid of it. And then we'll have the meeting. So I did that for about an hour. And then I thought, right, you know what? I think I'm just going to get on with it. This isn't going anywhere. I'm just going to get into the meeting. And I sat down at this meeting and they'd given me a glass of water that had ice in it. It was like really, really cold water. And I took a sip of it. And the second that cold hit me, it literally was like somebody had just rammed a metal rod through my eye. Like I can't even describe the pain. And I said, something's very wrong. We need to call an ambulance. And then it felt like water was filling up in my head. And then I started to feel like these long, thin pins were being like pushed through my spine, and it was moving down. And as it was moving down, my back was kind of locking up like this at the same time. And actually, weirdly, I really didn't understand what an aneurysm was or a hemorrhage properly. Like my sister said, shall I call 111? And I was like, call 999. I'm having a brain aneurysm. I didn't know that was what it was, but I just knew it was something very severely wrong. I thought I was going to be sick. So they tried to move me to the bathroom and my legs wouldn't work. So just, now what I understand of it is as the blood goes into the fluid that surrounds your brain, it's the same fluid that then runs down your spinal cord. So as it was this foreign object that was moving through different parts of my body that wasn't expecting it, it was just affecting all the systems. They were all going, what is this? And shutting down. And yeah, so luckily the ambulance was there within about 20 minutes. And I happened to be, which again is another really lucky part, I happened to be in Cambridgeshire. I was living in London at the time. I was in Cambridgeshire for this meeting. And Adam Brooks in Cambridge is like an incredible hospital with an amazing neuro team. And yeah, got me in. And I was with amazing doctors very quickly.
When I asked you that question, I really did not expect that amount of detail in exactly what you experienced in that moment. And just to hear you talk about that is just, it kind of sent shivers down my spine, because not a lot of people know this because I don't talk about it a lot, but my sister, she died from a brain hemorrhage. So what you're talking about right now, it so resonates with me and it so relates to me. And just to think that that's probably what she was experiencing is just really. Thank you for explaining that. I really appreciate it, because just to have somebody real life tell you that that's what's happening is just mind blowing for me.
Yeah.
So I know that you've explained in real detail. Thank you so much for doing that in what was happening in that moment. But there was a real journey after that. And you said that you were really lucky to be in the right place at the right time. Also, something told you that this is bigger than a migraine. Something's definitely happening here. So tell us about, from that moment on, tell us about your journey from there, because I know that it had an impact on your speech and it must have had an impact on your independence, perhaps even your identity.
Mm-hmm.
So talk me through that.
There's so many layers to it. It's such a fascinating experience to go through. So most immediately, it took a little while for them to figure out exactly what happened. So one of the reasons I was so lucky and recovered so well was that it was an aneurysm. And an aneurysm is, for anybody who doesn't know, is where there's an area of your artery that effectively forms kind of like a bubble. That's the aneurysm. And if the pressure to that artery increases, it can effectively burst that bubble because it's thinner. And it can split at the bottom, or it can just completely burst. Mine actually split and opened, but then closed itself again. So I had the brain bleed, and that caused the issues. But by the time they were working on me in the hospital, and then when I had the surgery afterwards, it wasn't to stop the bleeding, it was to stop it from ever happening again. So it was a reason that I was really, really lucky with it. So one of the really interesting initial experiences that happened, I mean, obviously you're in this like debilitating pain. Like it literally felt like two people were trying to pull my head into. It didn't matter how much morphine they gave me in the hospital; it just didn't go anywhere. Um, I'd had no sleep. I was high on morphine. All of the things happening, like through all these different investigations, things. I also couldn't see, so because of the way it had impacted, like the trauma to my brain, I just couldn't handle any light whatsoever. So it wasn't that. I think, if I opened my eyes, I could see, but I had complete like masked eyes because I couldn't take in any of the light. So the whole time I was in the hospital, like literally the whole time, I didn't see anybody who worked on me, anything like that. So that was a really weird part of the experience, is like you're just hearing the voices and you can touch people and that's about it. But one of the things was when the surgeon, who, they don't have a crazy, amazing bedside manner because they're just the kind of people who are brilliant at being a brain surgeon. He came in and explained what had happened in my brain and that I needed to choose from two different types of operation, and was just very cold, matter of fact about it. And basically was like, this one has 100% chance of fixing the issue, but there's a X percentage chance you'll die in the operation. And this one is a lower percentage chance you'll die in the operation, but then there's a 10% chance it won't hold forever. You need to pick which one in the next 10 minutes because we need to get you in for surgery. And I'm there like with no sleep, in this agonizing pain, high on morphine, going, how do you make that decision? Like, so that was a really interesting experience. But then off the back of that, I was going into the operation very, very aware that there were these not insignificant chances of death in both operations. And that in itself was like, I always thought I was so terrified of dying. I genuinely did think I was really scared of death. Like I couldn't really think about it because I'd go into a bit of a spiral. But when I was faced with a situation where I was like, I'm going to be put to sleep and I know I could not wake up. And I was so okay with it. And that was so mind blowing to me because it's the complete opposite of how I thought I would feel. And it was so important to me that I let my husband know that. I was like, I really need you to know before I go in that if I don't wake up and I don't come out, I'm okay. Like, I really feel like, because it's so true. Like your whole life just suddenly comes back into your mind of like how you've lived. And I was like, I've like done all these mad things. I've followed every adventure. I've traveled loads. I've built businesses. I've followed passions. I've loved really well. I've been loved really well. All these different things. I was like, I've made all these mistakes, but it's all been part of it. And it's just this beautiful, I suddenly realized like, it's all just so perfect. Like it's all so perfectly imperfect. It's, that in itself was just this life-changing thought process to go through, and you're not even consciously doing it. It's just in a split second, it's all just happening to you before you go in.
I'm really proud of you for living your life to the fullest. And I truly believe that, Thea, that you are here for a reason, and the universe wants you to be here for a reason. So I'm just going to be watching your story and following you to see where you go and watching your journey, because I think there is truly a reason for you to be here, and also telling your story and sharing your story, and also us both connecting as well. And I don't know if there's that many people that have a story like this to tell. So I feel very privileged to be able to have you on the podcast today. So you've talked about the conversations that you had with the surgeon and, the decision that you had to make. What do you think was the biggest challenge that you faced during that time and in the rebuilding of yourself? Because it was such a traumatic and scary experience, but it seems like you just took it on like a trooper.
What's really interesting is I think people probably think I'm mad when I say this. I didn't find the experience traumatizing or scary. Like, weirdly, I think when it's you. So there's a line from a book that I really love that's all about how, like, we only have problems when we're thinking about like the future or the past. When you're actually in it, it's not a problem because it's just the thing and you just deal with it. And I think because me, I was so in it, it wasn't scary. I was just like, right, Right, and because there was so much pain and so much discomfort, like both before and after the operation. Like after the operation, my body, because of like the nerve, like where it was unhappy down my spine, my body actually locked up from like the bottom of my skull to the back of my knees. So I couldn't I couldn't bend my head down at all. Like it was all just stuck, and I couldn't straighten my legs. So I was like this, like I was laying in bed, like I couldn't even roll over. Like I was like a little turtle that was just stuck. And I think when everything's gone to that level of low, you're just thinking, I need to move a little bit, but if I move, I might go into cramp. And then if I go into cramp, then my head's going to split with pain again. And that's probably going to make me sick. So this was like a cycle I was in. And I was like, I really need some water. And then like, you're just in this like constant little, like, what is the next immediate action that I need? I just had this overwhelming sense of gratitude. I was just so happy and grateful. It was like, this has just happened, but I'm alive. And when I came out of the operation, obviously still like semi high on anesthetic, my family were like, you literally just, they wheeled you in and you were going, I didn't die. I didn't die. And I was like so happy. There's like this video of me, like my husband like lifted a thing of water to me so I could have a sip, and I'm just like blowing bubbles into it because I'm so excited. Like it's just ridiculous. And I was so great. I was like just so grateful for all these people who are working on me. I was every incremental thing from then, like every micro feeling I had of like, this is like a 0.5% better than yesterday. Like there's a little bit less pain, or I've just gone for an hour between being sick rather than half an hour yesterday, or whatever it was. I could just sense these like micro progressive steps that just kept me in this such a positive state the whole way through the experience. I couldn't really engage with anything for quite a few weeks because my brain couldn't handle stimulus. So I pretty much lay in like a dark room staring at a wall with like no music, I couldn't like read anything. I couldn't really have conversations with people. I couldn't handle any light. So I literally just for 24/7 for weeks was just me in a dark room in the silence, like in full silent retreat. None of that I found difficult at all. I was like, this is what we're doing and we're doing it. The thing I found really difficult and really heavy was seeing the weight of the experience on the people I love. Like genuinely, that I feel that in my chest when I say it. Like I've always been the person who looks after people, makes stuff happen, takes the pain away, deals with it. Like I'm just that person. And so to be the one that they're all carrying this weight for, and like I could see it, people's faces were just like tired and grey, and you could see it in their body language and in their voices and the worry and the stress and all of it. And I couldn't take it away. I couldn't do anything about it. Like I just couldn't help them. And that was what was really hard about the experience.
One of the things I'm hearing from you is that you are very solid within yourself, and you have a lot of faith and trust in yourself,
Yeah.
which you obviously have done a lot of work up until that point to build. And the other really key message that I'm hearing from you is that the universe won't give you something if it doesn't feel like you can deal with it. And you really did deal with this. You're like, I'm fine, I'm alive. And also, I feel like, the silence and the calm that you had during that time is a bit of a gift. Whenever do we get those moments? And I really love your outlook because I think you are seeing this as a bit of a gift. I've been given another day, and what better gift can that be? So let's talk a little bit more about the power of your resilience. I mean, you've touched upon it so much while you've been telling us your story, but what was one of the things that helped you to move forward the most when you just didn't know what was going to happen next? You didn't know what the outcome was going to be.
I'd say a really key element was the gratitude. So really interestingly, about 4 years, I think 4 or 5 years before this happened, I had started really intentionally doing a lot of work around this area. at the time, I just had some things going on with my family and in my personal life that were really affecting me. And I decided I just didn't want to feel that way anymore. I didn't want to live that way anymore. So I got really into reading on the topic, but then not just reading, but actually doing the intentional practices. So really getting into a state of gratitude, into like reflecting a lot more, into really working on what I can control versus what I can't, and only putting my energy into what I can control. Um, Lots of different things that effectively I can now see why I didn't have to try to be that way when this big life event happened. It just naturally all came out of me. So I think when you really are living in fully in gratitude, you do see an experience through that lens. So I did see like all I focused on was the amazing things out of it. And I do like you say, I do see it as something that is a gift, not just because I got the chance to carry on living, but the like you can never know what it's like to become close to losing your life and not lose it, and how that resets you. Like I literally, when I came around from the operation, I felt like somebody had just cleared the decks of my brain completely. Like all of the things that were all the noise, all the things that were in there before about like, you know, which might have been to do with like worrying what people think of me, or like whether I'm achieving enough, or if I did this right or I did this wrong, or like all these little bits and pieces that just would not, they literally did not exist anymore. I was like, there are just two things in my brain. It's like, can my body do what it needs to do in order for me to literally live? And are my loved ones okay? And there was nothing else in my brain. I'm like, you don't get that as an adult after all the junk we accumulate through life. How much of a gift is that to get completely reset back to that? So I think the gratitude was a big one. The other one that was really big was this. I'd worked really hard on a mindset of, there's a book I love called The Gap or the Gain, The Gap and the Gain, maybe, Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy. And it really gets you to understand, like, you always have a choice. Like, you can always be looking at like where you're not yet, like the gap ahead of you, or where you've come, where you've progressed from, the gains that you're making. And if you keep feeding your brain the gap, you're telling your brain, like, we're not there yet, you're not there yet. It's a very negative space to be in. Whereas if you keep feeding it the gains, it's like, you moving forward, you're always winning, you're amazing, you're making all this progress. And it's a really positive state to keep your brain in, and then you actually accelerate faster. So I'd done a lot of this in my entrepreneurial work, and that, I think, just was there. Like, every little micro bit of progress I was making, I was feeling. I wasn't thinking at all about where I've got yet to go. Like, I wasn't thinking. And there was a point where I think one of my sisters went on like a forum for other people who'd been through this and survived it, so that we could have a bit of a better understanding of other people. And I had to get myself out of that very quickly, because so much of it was the opposite. So much of people was like focusing on like the hardship of it, and like the despair of how long it was going to be till they felt better. So people saying they were 5 years down the line and they were still suffering with things. And I was like, I can't have in my head that in 5 years' time, I'm still going to be dealing with this. That's not happening. I'm getting out of this. I'm getting strong. I'm getting healthy. I'm going to be back to normal within no time at all. And because that's what I fed myself, I think it had a big impact on how quickly I recovered.
When was the moment that you realized that actually I am stronger than I ever thought I was? Or did you always know that you had this strength?
I think I knew I had a strength in me. I knew I had a certain level of strength in me. But the difference, I think, between before and after was, I think I'd felt a lot before that strength needed to come from pushing and hard effort, and, almost like the equivalent of standing up with my hands on my hips and having this like armored strength. Whereas what this experience taught me was the strength of the quiet, just like so there was a moment. So typically every day was a different pain. Like it was moving. So what happens is you're effectively kind of waiting for the blood, as you would with a bruise. You sometimes see it move down with gravity. So it's like the blood with gravity is eventually kind of like moving all the way down and through your system, and it kind of gets reabsorbed back into your body through around your kind of coccyx area. But what happened was I got to the end point of that, and there was about 8 days where it was concentrated around my coccyx, and the pain was so awful, and it didn't let up like 24/7. It was like somebody had like hit my coccyx with a cricket bat or something. It was that kind of throbbing deep in my bone kind of pain. So I was really struggling to sleep during that period. And the first day I was like, it's fine. Pain moves within a day. It will go somewhere else. And then the next day it was still there. And then the next day it was still there. And then that really did start to get quite tiring. But I can't remember where, somewhere in that process, I must have done work on visualizations before. I don't really remember what I did that through. But I'd be laying in bed and I decided that I was connected to a machine by my coccyx, and that went down into the earth. And I was the power source for the good in the planet that was creating like the trees and all the good things. And it put me in service to that. And I suddenly was like, okay, I'm not labeling this as a bad feeling anymore. Like, this is a very strong feeling in my body, but I'm not like, this is bad. It's like, this is positive. I can cope with this. My body can cope with this. So I think it was that very different type of strength, like a very quiet, slow, considered type of strength. And that was a really interesting thing for me to see come out through this experience.
I just want to sort of sum up some of the key messages that you've talked about, because it's very powerful. What you're saying is very powerful. I think what you've just explained there, the way I would interpret that is that I am part of something bigger. And there is something bigger. There's a higher power that that has got my back.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite literally with you, has got your back. So that's what I heard when you were just telling me that. The other thing that I want to sort of reiterate for our listeners is that the power of gratitude, just how powerful it is when you come from a space of gratitude and not lack and not scarcity and abundance. Some amazing things and miracles can happen, and you are definitely proof of that.
I think the bit around focusing on what you can control versus what you can't is really key. I definitely, at other points in my life when I was younger, would drained so much energy out of myself trying to change the things that really I couldn't change, that were outside of my control, and focusing so much on those things. I now very much see it as like, there's me, there's a line around my field of control, and then there's everything else, all the other people in the world, all the other situations that can happen, and that's outside. And I just zone all of my energy into my side of the line. And I think that's really important, because I think in those situations you have to accept the reality of the lay of the land, and then work and keep your optimism and just work within it and think, okay, that's happening, so what do we do about it? That's happening, so what do we do about it? Rather than trying to stop that thing from happening, because that's just not beneficial, expending your energy in that direction.
I think that sometimes we have a habit of looking at the bigger picture and looking at, well, how can we get to that outcome? And actually what you did is you basically just looked at what is the next step. Yeah. How can I put one foot in front of the other? And it's really important to do that, because we as humans, we are spiritual beings, but we are learning to be spiritual beings as humans. We don't have the capacity to see what the possibilities are. So sometimes we think that our journey will be like this, but we don't realize that sometimes it's like this, and it's like this, and it's like this. And it can go any way. It really can go any way. And you don't understand what gifts are available to you when you let go of the control and you allow things to be. And I don't know if you've ever read the book Power versus Force.
No, I haven't.
It's an incredibly complex book, but it basically talks about how when we're trying to force things, like, we're trying to control what happens in our life, that we're operating from force. But when we operate from power, we are operating from faith and trust and abundance. That no matter what, no matter how challenging our journey is, there is a reason for it, and there is a gift and a miracle within that. You might think that there's a certain outcome for you, or there's a certain journey for you, but you just don't realize that actually there might be a different journey that you're supposed to go on, and that's as precious as what you think it should be.
Mhm. I also think there's this really, like, in the similar way when you think about power and force, the way I like personally think about resilience as well is, if I think about that situation, how much less I needed resilience for that situation, because that situation just didn't impact me in the way that it might impact somebody else, or it might have impacted me before. Like, really, how much, if you think about resilience as a force, like, we need it the more that's coming at us, right? The more that, but because I had so many of the tools I'd worked on to, like, not let the things come and affect me, I didn't need to find as much resilience in that situation.
Thea, I spoke about earlier that there's a reason why you're here. I really believe that. And there's a reason why you went through this challenge. How has this experience changed you? And has it made you more driven?
It's changed me a lot, particularly in how I operate. So, what's really interesting is, if you look at now how I operate versus how driven I am, it could feel like they're contradictory, but actually, one is very much feeding the other. So, what I mean by this is, I very much followed the playbook before of, you work more, you work harder, you do all the things, and you will achieve more and you will get further with what you're doing. So that meant, not always necessarily looking after myself, not having enough downtime, not having enough balance in my life, all the things we do when we're really driven and we're really going after ambition. When I started to get to a point where I could think about doing work or whatever I might do, again, following this experience, before I even thought about the work side of things, I made such a strong commitment to myself that going forward, I was going to build a life first life. So I really got clear on what that meant for me. I was like, that really means I have enough time in my day to move my body in the way that I really should. That I have enough time to feed my body, like actually make home cooked food that is of the right nutrition, so I'm always well fed. That I had enough time for the people who I really care about, and to be properly present with them, not just in the room, but my brain somewhere else, which is what I'd done for a lot of years. And I also would have the capacity for things to come up. So, like, my sister might phone me and say, my nephew's sick, can I go and help? Or whatever it might be. I was like, I don't want to feel stressed by needing to be there for the things that are important to me in life. So I had those kind of boundaries in place. And then from a work perspective, I was like, my last business had been like really full on. And I'd got to the point where I think probably for at least the last year of running it, all the decisions I was coming up against, I was really ending up having to make from a place of fear, of like, I need to get away from this thing. I need to stop this thing from happening. And it was just a horrible energy to be in, to be firefighting and in that place. And I was like, I want to be building something where I can genuinely always make choices from a place of joy. Like, what am I going after? What's the opportunity? What's the good thing? What are we leading towards? And so I was like, these things have to fit. And I really want to be doing the work where I feel like I'm in my flow and I'm not doing loads of stuff I don't love, and I don't want to be working with people I don't want to work with. Like, I had all this criteria. And I was like, I'm just going to see if this is possible. Because actually, media and the noise out there kind of says it's not. It kind of says, like, to have this big ambition because I was like, I'm still ambitious. I still want to build another company. I still want to grow big. That none of that has changed. That excites me, and it's just who I am. But I just want to see if you can do it this way with like not compromising any of these things that I've said are important. And it just became this really fun, enjoyable experiment. And straight away, I started to get signals like, actually, this is way easier and this is growing fast. And I'm moving faster than I ever have before. And yet I'm still going to my 10 o'clock Pilates. And my sister's just phoned me at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday and says, it's sunny, should we go and get a glass of wine? And I'm saying yes. And all of these things that are so contradictory to the playbook of how you need to build and how you need to be. So I think has been just amazing over the past few years. And now that's really built into the work that I do. And I'm really able to show people, like I've done it with my business and now I do it with other people in their business. And it's creating this movement of people understanding that we can challenge what commercial success looks like and how much it doesn't need to come at the compromise of personal success.
This is beautiful. This is a beautiful message, and it's so needed because for those of you that don't know, Thea is a very successful entrepreneur. She's an amazing business lady, and I just love that you're talking about flow. Again, it's the whole control and not forcing things. And I think, we have a habit of wanting to do more, and then we forget about being in the present moment, doing the things that we value the most, which is spending time with our family and friends, tending to ourselves, our well-being, our health. All of these things are really, really important. Yes, it's important to be successful. Yes, it's important to have a successful business and to work hard. But it's also very important to have a balance. And one of the things that you experienced is that if I did die tomorrow, would I feel fulfilled?
Mhm.
And I think that the thing that is really important to remember is that there are many aspects and elements to life. It's not just work.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many things in life that are important. So I love that the way that you operate in your life now. And I think it's such an important message for our listeners as well. But I do go for it. Go
I was
on.
just going to say, one of the key things that's been really good for me to learn and be able to show people is that it's actually a really strategic move. And it's this whole relabeling from it being, well, I'm being sensible and strategic if I'm just working hard. And if I take time out and I relax my schedule and actually, I'm kind of slacking a bit. And that's the opposite of this strategic move. And if I'm really that ambitious, why am I doing that? And I'm able to reframe that through so many examples now of like, no, the smartest, most strategic move you can often do is go and play in the park with your kid or your nephew, or go and have an early glass of wine, or sleep in an extra hour, or go to a Pilates class, or take a week off and properly shut your laptop. All of these things, they bring you back as such a better entrepreneur. Like, all we're really doing all the time as entrepreneurs is using our brains to assess information and to come up with decisions, right? We always talk about the 1,000 decisions we're having to make. So those things that it might be just like data in a certain place, we got to look at it and make a decision. It might be there's a challenge that's come up and we got to make a decision. It might be there's a potential opportunity we could go after. But you are the machine, and we know so much about the brain now, and we know so much if the brain is balanced and happy and feels safe and it has all like flow, creativity goes up, productivity goes up, resilience goes up, problem solving goes up. All the things that we need to be the best versions of ourselves as an entrepreneur is actually supported by this behavior.
Absolutely agree with you 100%. And my business is Root to Resilience. It's all about connecting to your roots and, connecting to your core. And one of the things that I always teach is being able to pause reflect and reset is so, so important, and you come back stronger.
Mhm.
But even I have those moments where I feel guilty and I'm telling myself, why are you being lazy? Why have you had an extra half an hour in bed? It's just so mad how our minds are conditioned to, you are not of any value if you're not doing anything.
Mhm.
So I just want everybody to know, and I know Thea will support this, that even when you're not doing anything, you are of value. Just you being you is of value. So please remember that. Now, I really want to give you an opportunity to tell people what your business is all about, because you've touched upon what you're sharing with your clients, which is helping them to become more productive. So please do tell our listeners what your business is all about.
Yeah, I'd love to. We work with founders who have built a six-figure business, usually a low six-figure business, and they really want, they know the potential's in there for it to be much more. And that might be that they have a seven-figure goal. A lot of people want to make that crossover from six figures to seven, but some of them just want it to run in a more structured way that feels calmer, that doesn't ask so much of them, that pays them better. It's me and a team now. It used to just be me, but it's me and a team. We really step in and support that founder and look at the business and look at strategically, often plugging in like the more of the commercial and operational side, because you've often got a founder who's very good at what they do, but they've not ever really learned business to that extent. They haven't been the CFO like I have, so they don't look at business in the same way. And we figure out like, okay, what needs to shift in this business? How can we make this business run as its own operation? How can we extract the founder a bit so they run it rather than be it? And then we scale from there. So we're typically seeing businesses very quickly grow out of where they feel like they're stuck, but also extract more value back on the bottom line of the business. So the founder can pay themselves more, they can take less, take more time for themselves, they can switch off if they want to go on holiday and just really get back to enjoying it again.
Please talk to us about what the common themes that you see and how you're basically helping people to bust those myths that they have in their minds.
A really common one is that the business is built up around what the founder is really good at. Well, that's very typical. They had a career in something, they built a skill set or experience in a certain area, and that's what their service or their product is connected to. And so the founder, it ends up being the center of all of that. So I think of it like a picture, and you've got the business owner who started it here, and everything touches them. So they might have team members doing different things, but the founder's the one who's like answering all the questions from the team, because they're not always necessarily clear, like, is this to the right standard? Would we handle the situation this way? That kind of thing. The founder also like keeps their fingers in that stuff to make sure the quality is where they want it to be. The clients want to work with the founder because they've probably bought into the founder through the sales process. So a lot of the sales come in through referrals. The founder's just basically like juggling and touching everything. And really that's only happening because, and by the way, this is practically every business that gets to like six figures or multi six figures. So a lot of people can get to that point and think, what have I done? Like, I've built this so wrong, and I've just trapped myself into the corner. And it's a very natural, normal state for a business to get into. But all that's happening is you need typically outside eyes to look at it and go, okay, well, where you're doing these things, they're a bit out of the ordinary, and we'd be better off if we just got you down to like, what's your really good service you deliver, and what do you do on repeat, and what are the standards? And that's never actually been taken out of your head and properly put down on paper and properly assigned to other people. So it's really just a case of unpicking all the pieces that are tied through the founder and getting it to work on its own. So the founder can oversee it, but they could step away and it's still going to run without them. I often come back to the phrase of these businesses just haven't yet been well leveraged. So all the pieces, all the bits are there for it to be a really easy to run business every time, by the way. Like, I've never looked at a multi-six-figure business and we haven't been able to find the pieces for a very scalable model. So people will often come in and say, I've definitely built the wrong thing. I think I need to scrap all of this and start again. And I'm always like, hang on a second. Let's just look at it. They're always there, but it's just that they're not put together in the right way. They're not being fully leveraged to give the return for less effort, which is our focus. Is like, you're not going to do more, you're going to do less, and the business is going to grow more.
In a nutshell, let people know that what Thea's helping businesses to do is to be profitable and sustainable without running yourself into the ground. Isn't that exactly what you're doing?
Exactly that.
So I know that a lot of listeners are going to be like, Thea, help me. I need to be able to do this. So I'm definitely going to be putting your information in the show notes for anybody who wants this kind of support. Just to tell everybody what's the name of your business, please.
Calm with 2 M's.
Just one last thing for the listeners. If somebody is facing something that they feel that is impossible, what is the one message that you would want to share with them today?
I would probably go with focus, really get clear on what you can control versus what you can't. And within that, break it down into the babyest step necessary for you to just focus on taking action and let go of the outcome you're trying to get to. Like, just take the baby step, and before you know it, the next baby step and the next baby step and the next baby, it'll all start happening and you'll be so much further than you realize.
Perfect message to end with. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. I appreciate it more than you know. Your journey is such a powerful reminder that resilience is not about having an easy path. It's about taking the next step and then the next step and then the next step, and being able to find the courage and strength and determination to be able to do that, even when life doesn't go according to plan, because it never does. And that's the beauty of it. And what we need to do is play this beautiful game called life and really, really go for it with the joy and abundance that you have. To everyone listening, I hope today's episode has reminded you that your story is still being written and difficult chapters don't mean the ending has been decided. If you're looking for support on your own journey, whether that's through personal development, building resilience, well-being coaching, or creating meaningful change, you can connect with me through Route to Resilience. And remember, resilience is your superpower.